of similar things, like they have some similar sounds, like the vowel sounds are the same and that sort of thing. But the grammar is the important part. It can really open your mind. Esperanto can also open your mind with some of the grammar to Russian too, because many words in Russian work the same way as Esperanto words. And that comes from the creator of Esperanto being a linguist himself, a polyglot also himself. But Esperanto fills an important role in the same way Latin used to, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. Can I just ask you, there's some crackling on the line. I don't know if it's your headset or something. Just try to, I don't know if it's the way you're moving your arms or something, but there's a noise that keeps coming back.
Problem solved.
You're on it? Good. Perfect.
Problem solved.
Alright, that's cool. And I know for a fact that when we started talking about a year ago with the language hour we were trying to do and all the other projects, I know for a fact you like to sort of skip between languages and sort of, maybe not get into an intermediate stage in each. Can you explain a little bit how that process was back then, and has it changed till today?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So when we first met almost a year ago, I think, and I was really jumping between them because I really wanted to leave nothing out. It was kind of like playing with certain toys and you feel bad about the ones on the shelf.
Right.
So, but on my shelf, it's just a bunch of language books, and if I've got one in my hands, there's 10 more of different languages that I want to get to next. So it was really for that reason. I just was interested in too many things at once, and I wasn't very good about goal setting. Having moved to China, however, it's always right there in my face that I should be focusing on Chinese. And if I get tempted by Korean or Russian or any of the other languages I hear around here, if you can believe it, I tend to lose sight of the big picture. But being here has helped me focus more. I'd say it's changed in that way. I focus more on Chinese. Actually, having watched a video that a fellow language learner named Robin made, who's a mutual friend of a friend of mine, he made a video about his life in Japan as an expat, which is what I'm doing here in China. I'm an expat. And he recounted the story of learning Japanese for 3 or so years on his own, and then becoming an interpreter in Japan, in Fukuoka, which is amazing. I thought it's incredible, but I realized that it takes an intense amount of vocabulary learning, which is something I never used to focus on, and a lot of commitment to one language at a time, which is also something I hadn't done. So those two things are pretty new, the vocabulary and the focus on one. Those are both new for me.
There's still some noise going on, so Chris, it's I know people are going to be a little bit annoyed with it's like, that static you get if you're messing with your microphone.
Oh, I promise I'm not.
Yeah, must be a technical problem then. All right, we'll have to make do. Okay, and so you got to China, and tell us the story of how you got to China. Robin's story is also very interesting, and I can only recommend people listening to the podcast I did with him, which was episodes 9 and 10, and we talked for hours and hours, and that's why I had to split it into 2 episodes. But his story is truly fascinating. It's very interesting. But how did you get to China? And how did you get to China? I'm sure a lot of language learners are looking into possibilities of how to relocate.
Well, let me encourage anyone who wants to come to China, especially for language-related things, to come. You're always going to be welcome here. I mean, I've never met people more welcoming. Of course, I haven't lived for a long period of time in another country before, but I've really never encountered what I thought would be more or less hostile, based on how Americans act normally towards foreigners that can't speak their language.
Right.
I thought they would be relatively hostile by no fault of theirs. But really, it's an amazing place to be, an amazing place to live. I would say if you speak English, you can probably, I'd say definitely get an English language related job if you don't have any skills that you are trying to find a job for in China. You can find an English language related job even if you have an accent of some kind. I've known of people from Africa, people from Eastern Europe, people from South America, Australia, with not your typical accent for an English teacher, coming and being perfectly happy in an English teaching job here in China, which is what I'm doing here. So you may be happy there. There's also lots of job opportunities in other fields if you want to come and live here for a while and work in your field of interest if it's not English teaching, which is pretty typical. But you'd be most welcome here, and it's a huge hub of languages. There's so many languages here. You would definitely never be bored.
Cool. But how did you decide to go to China in the first place?
Oh yeah, well, last fall, which I guess is more than a year ago, I had set my sights on Prague. I thought, wow, the Czech Republic, what a perfect place to go and try and find an English teaching job, to do a little gap year after college and find myself and all the rest of the things that people try to do when they travel for the first time. but I ended up with a list of a few different places that did not include Prague. I had Japan, Korea, Shanghai, Beijing, and I ended up in Beijing for a number of reasons. One of them being it was near places I wanted to visit, like Japan and Korea. And I knew I probably couldn't learn Chinese alone. So I thought it would be really great to have the people around me helping and involved.
Cool. And then do you have any preparation at home in terms of Chinese, or did you just say, you know, I'm gonna cross that bridge when I get there and look into how to learn it, or did you prepare in any way?
Wow, most of it was the latter, I gotta say. But I did a little bit with the Roman alphabet version of the language. I didn't really learn any vocabulary or anything like that, but trying to pronounce words, I wanted that to be over by the time I came, and that was pretty much over by the time